Nayakwe, Nagnamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today I'll be talking about my July wrap-up. For the month of July, oh my god, there's so much going on. I went camping, I was in a wedding for my best friend. Oh my goodness. River trips, and overall just work chaos. So July felt like that mood of like there's so many things to do and yet you don't want to do anything at all. I had plans for many videos and just wasn't able to, as far as editing is a pain. And it wasn't something that I was able to fit into my busy month. So yeah. But overall I'm pretty happy with how my reading turned out for the month of July. Let's get into that. So for the month of July, I read 10 books. Number of pages equates to 3,273. In terms of rating breakdown, I have 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, 2 2.5 stars, 1 3 star, 1 3.5 star, 2 4 stars, 1 4.5 star, and 2 5 stars. So all across the board. Genres, I have 1 contemporary, 2 fantasy, 3 horror, 4 nonfiction. Is that it? And then for format, I have 7 audiobooks and 3 physical books. Okay, that makes sense to me. I was just like, how did I read so much? I'm really heavily relying on audiobooks. I'm realizing, especially going into August. Yeah, and then in terms of audiences, I have 7 adult, 1 middle grade, and 2 young adults. So for the month of July, it was my 2nd episode of Pokemon Cards Choose My TBRs. I'll have that playlist linked down below as well as up in the cards if you're wanting to check that out. Ultimately, it's being put on pause for the month of August due to the Magical Readathon Aurelium for the fall equinox, so essentially the fall semester. And that video is out if you want to go check that out. I'll have that linked down below as well. But I do have to update. I do have prompts that I want to update in terms of the Pokemon Chooses My TBR. It's just slightly adjusting a couple of the prompts. I don't know how useful they'll be considering what I've been pulling, but it's a random bag, so we'll see. But that I will announce for my September TBR, which I hope will be my Pokemon Chooses the TBR will be brought back by then, so keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, for this one, I think I ended up pulling 11 cards. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. I did. There was 11 cards in this pack, so a little more than what I'm used to. I don't know if it was a fluke or what, but I will say that I got to 5 of the books that my Pokemon cards pulled for me. So off the bat, let me just kind of go over what I was not able to get to. I do still hope to get to them at some point in the future, just didn't have the time or energy in July to get to them. Like I said, I was really heavily relying on audiobooks and not all of these were available to me in audiobook format. Woobat, we have, which is a sidekick, so that's to read a thriller. And for Zuba, I had Find Me by Anne Fraser. I was not able to finish this. I did kind of start it, like I don't think I'm very many pages in. I'm on like the 5th page. Yeah, I ended up just putting this aside. Not that I wasn't feeling it, I just was feeling another book more. Had wanted to get back to this in July and just didn't have time. So it is on my August TBR to finish reading because I still do want to complete it. So hopefully I'll be able to give you a wrap up then, or give you a review at the end of August. For Drowsy, I have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This one is actually what I ended up picking up instead of Find Me, and I'm still reading it. I will have the cover here, but it is currently what I'm reading. I am about halfway through, or at the time being, it is taking me a bit to get into. Not that it's the book's fault. Like I said, have been just busy. Reading isn't on my priority list. I have a lot of catching up in terms of chores and just overall housework I need to do. And whenever I do get a chance to just kind of sit, reading is not the first thing I go to. It's usually, honestly, if I'm sitting, I'm eating, or I'm watching YouTube or playing a video game. I haven't actually had time to like sit and read. So but yeah, I do hope to finish this as well, so hopefully you'll get a review of that in August wrap up. I originally put this on the July TBR because I thought it was the Literally Dead Book Club pick for the month of July. It is not. It's actually the pick for August, so my bad. So I feel like it's appropriate then that it kind of rolled over to August. Okay, and then we have Ribombi, another psychic, so another thriller, and that I had chosen How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. I'm still very much interested in this, but wasn't able to get to it. I don't know when I'll be able to get to it. Unlike the other two that are now rolling over to August, I don't plan on, if I can get to it, obviously I would love to, but it's not gonna happen. For Melodic, I had Outlaw Ocean, Journeys Across the Last Untamed Frontier by Ian Urbina. I also did not get to this. It's another one that I kept trying to start because I do have the audiobook for it and just wasn't getting into. I just was not feeling it. It's not that I think it's bad, I just wasn't in the mood for it. So I do hope to, like I said, get to it at some point. Let's see how many times I can say that. And then for some reason as well, didn't even think about picking up any of the volumes of Low. So for the first and second one, I have Psyduck and Bergamite for the first and second volume. For the third volume, that was for a trainer card, which I replaced with something else, which I'll show you. But yeah, just didn't even think about picking these up, so hopefully at some point. So what I did end up reading, I'll go through what I read in order. So first book I read for the month was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. This was a rollover from June that I was happy to get to. This is a sapphic cozy fantasy where Viv, an orc barbarian, is done being a barbarian of sorts, is done killing and whatnot, and is just wanting to open a cafe and sell coffee, even though no one really knows what that is. So it was very cozy. They end up hiring a succubus, and Viv just wants to follow her dreams, and ultimately it was just a really fun, relaxing book. There was some bits in there that made me feel like it was a little meandering, and I was kind of just going along with it. It was fairly slow paced, but ultimately very cozy, and really enjoyed it. I hear there's supposed to be more in this series, and yeah, it very much made me crave the winter cozy vibes, in all honesty, which in this heat right now, it's just like wanting it even more. But yeah, very cute. I really enjoyed this. I believe I gave it 4.5 stars. Next, I read The Genius of Birds by Jennifer Ackerman. I actually received this, I believe this is an unfinished copy. I believe it's an ARC, but I'm not entirely sure. No, it's a finished copy. But I received this in a Goodreads giveaway, actually, like years and years ago, and I finally got to it. I actually ended up listening to this through Libro FM. And basically it's a nonfiction about the genius of birds, really, because Jennifer Ackerman kind of goes through some of the phrases, bird brain, etc., and why they're irrelevant at this point, because people always thought that because of how small birds' brains are that they weren't as smart as humans, which of course humans are the basis of intelligence tests for some reason. It was really interesting. It did lose me a couple times because it did get a little more scientific than I was expecting to, but overall I really did enjoy this. I believe I gave it 3 stars. Like, I liked it. It was enjoyable. I really enjoy this cover. I am a big bird fan, I enjoy birds for the most part, but I enjoy like specific birds particularly, stellar jays, I like being able to identify certain birds, particularly by just like a brief glance at them flying by, or like being able to recognize their calls, stellar jays, robins, etc. So yeah, it was a nice book, a nice enough book. Next, I read Mosquito Land by David Arnold. This fulfilled the prompt for Skip Bloom, which is grass, which is to read a book set in summer, or like feels summery, and because of the color palette of this book and the cover being this girl on a bus, it felt fairly summery to me. This book was also on my 12 books that will self-destruct in 12 months video. So basically, if I didn't read this in time, I would have to unhaul it. I think I'm going to end up unhauling it anyway, because I gave this 2.5 stars. So this book is about Mim Malone, who is dragged from her home in northern Idaho to live in the wastelands of Mississippi with her dad and new stepmom. She's not settling in well. She does have some mental health issues, and she ends up finding out that something's wrong with her mom, and she doesn't believe anyone's going to tell her, so she goes on this road trip to see her mom, and I believe she learns that her mom is sick, and so she goes and gets on a bus to Cleveland without anybody knowing. So it's basically her meeting people along the way and kind of just experiencing things for herself. I would say content warnings for several things: mental health, suicide ideation, and not the best purview of mental health. There's a lot of talk of being crazy or just being unwell, and there's also there's the R word. I think this was published in 2015. I would have guessed earlier, like early 2000s. In all honesty, I don't think it aged well. There's even a point where Mim talks about how she had heard from her mom at one point that she was Cherokee, and proceeded to there's this talk of like her war paint, and there's no talk of the wrongness that brings, or why it's wrong to do so. It's just kind of implied but never explained, and that kind of just overall left a bad taste in my mouth, because in my mind it still excused it for some reason. I don't know, just wasn't, I wasn't a big fan of it. So yeah, I feel like there was a lot of things where it just didn't explain things in a way that I thought would be appropriate, really. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan. Next, I read Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty. This is essentially a collection of stories set in Native community in Maine, a riveting debut collection about what it means to be, I'm going to say this wrong, Penobscot in the 21st century, what it means to live, to survive, and persevere after tragedy. So we're following one particular person throughout different events in their life, and it's very non-linear. We're jumping around a lot, and we're kind of just getting these pieces of this person and how they're surviving on the reservation. For this one, it was interesting. So I was able to get an advanced listener's copy of this through Libro FM, so thank you so much to them. And I had pre-ordered this, and I actually really love this cover. And this was an interesting read because there were parts that were funny, but there were also parts that were very heavy, like content warnings for death of a child, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and just there was a lot. And it just overall there was just like this stuckness of what some may feel on a reservation. Not to say that Penobscot is the same as any other reservation. I wouldn't know. I'm not Penobscot, and I only grew up for so long on the Hooper Reservation. So I don't know for sure, but that's what kind of came across to me. Take that with a grain of salt. So I would highly encourage you to look up own voice reviews, those from that are Penobscot or those who grew up on a reservation. Like I said, though, don't go in thinking that all Indigenous folks are monolithic. We all have our different experiences, stories, belief systems, like down to families. It's not just tribal or nationwide, it's family wide as well, or individuals. So we all have our own story. So that's what I kind of got from this. And so I rated this a 3.5. It was okay. For the energy card, which had this water on it, and basically my energy is to pick a book with the same color that is represented on the energy card, and for that I picked Healer of the Water Monster by Brian Young. I was able to get to this. I actually was able to read this while camping, and hopefully I'll talk about it more in a vlog. But ultimately, I did really enjoy this. We are following Nathan, who is spending his summer with Nali, his grandmother, on the Dene reservation. So Dene, also known as Navajo, he is aware that he is in for a summer with no running water, and no internet. But he doesn't want to be hanging out with his dad or his dad's new girlfriend, and doesn't, and it makes the excuse of wanting to get a head start on a science project, which I thought was pretty cool. There are some, I believe this is middle grade, but it does deal with some heavier topics as well. Drug abuse, PTSD, not drug use. No, not drug use. Alcohol use. Because Nathan is also dealing with his uncle Jet, because Nali is dealing with her son Jet, and his PTSD. And I like the way they explained it, actually. I like the way Brian Young wrote this. Was really, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed meeting all the holy beings and getting their personalities, as well as kind of the thought process on some of the ceremonies, of not just relying solely on like that the ceremony is going to completely fix everything, that there's work to be done after. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Yeah, it was just fun. There was ultimately some things in here that I didn't feel like were wrapped up as neatly as I would have liked. For instance, Nathan's, which I explained in my vlog and hopefully it'll be up soon, but for instance, Nathan's beef with his dad is there's never like a clear, this is fixed deal. It's just this, it just happens, or it's something like, for all there's work to be done, like there's self-work that needs to be done to be able to heal. And the fact that Nathan and his dad's relationship, I mean, his dad I don't think ever really thinks anything is wrong, but we don't get his perspective, we just get Nathan's perspective. But that's just in my mind of just like, it wasn't fixed, and that kind of bugs me. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed listening to it. And I read this, but I also it kind of just inspired me. I'm just like, I want to know now what the original names because here locally we have 6 rivers, and I want to know what we called them. I get that there is probably multiple names for multiple of the rivers because there were multiple people living alongside it. But I would like just to kind of know what they originally were. It was just unlocked a lot of things that I want to know now. So I thought that was pretty cool. I rated this 4 stars. Next, I read Fresh Banana Leaves, Healing Indigenous Landscapes Through Indigenous Science by Jessica Hernandez. This was on a previous TBR, I believe, or I actually had started reading it before and just wasn't able to get into it. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but because like I was listening to it while at work, and that was not a good combination. Because this is, an Indigenous environmental scientist breaks down why Western conservationism isn't working and offers Indigenous models informed by case studies, historical overviews, and stories that center the voices of Latin American women and land protectors. So there was a lot of frustration and anger, and just overall just there was a lot of stuff, and it was one of those books that I couldn't just listen to while doing my work. It's something that I paid solely focus on. So when I was listening to this, I actually wasn't doing anything that was taking my mind off it, really. I was watching the lake, or I was driving. Not to say that's the smartest thing, but it's like, you get what I mean. It was kind of I was driving safe. But it offered a lot, I feel like, and it's one of those books that reminded me that there's still a lot for us to work on. I know that, and taught me a lot. It made me I already knew that the American education system was shit. It just reminded me of such. And as well as, like, I already knew that that a lot of colored BIPOC people have a hard time in STEM because it's run by a bunch of old white men, particularly ones that want you to cite things. And that's what Jessica Hernandez talks about, of how she was constantly being asked to cite her sources when no one else had to, because she's Indigenous. So and I was aware of that, but it's like there was things that I wasn't aware of, and her explaining them was just really just eye-opening. And there's so many things that, like, I also thought for some reason I had this on my July TBR. I did not. I think so I had filmed the July TBR before the one I actually released, and like, I redid it, and I think this was on the original one, and I still had that in mind after filming and posting the second one. And for some reason it stuck with me and was like, I need to read this. I did need to read this because, from what I understand, it's a possibility that my university is getting Jessica Hernandez to come speak for Indigenous Peoples Week, which I think is really cool. So I wanted to get this read before then. I'm really happy I did. This is one that I will hopefully go back to. I do eventually want to reread it because I feel like I can really tab it up. So I feel like this is a must read as well. So if you ever have the chance to pick it up, highly suggest it. I know personally a lot of Indigenous people that need to pick it up, because I just think what Jessica Hernandez has to say is really important, and some of it goes beyond what I think some of our local community tends to either ignore or willfully just not talk about. So next, I read Tell Me Everything, the story of a private investigation by Erica Krauss. This is a nonfiction book of the month pick from March that this is like part memoir and part literary true crime, based off the mesmerizing story of a landmark sexual assault investigation and a female private investigator who helped crack it open. So I know that everything that she alters the school and the people in here, but I want to say it was a California university, but in here I think she makes it says like Colorado. I don't believe that's accurate. But yeah, it was a very intense story. I rated this 4 stars, as it feels weird to do that because it's also her memoir, and she has a lot to go through, particularly with her family. Actually, like, some of her family bits actually reminded me of Educated in a way, but like, I don't know, there was so much in here that I'm just like, oh my god. But it was also just really interesting in how she figured out how to be a private investigator, and like how it was affecting her, and why she had to get out of it. So I don't know, overall a very, very interesting story. I then had Scraggy, which is a dark Pokemon, which is to read horror, and for that I picked June's Literally Dead Book Club pick, which was Hide by Kirsten White. So I was actually kind of excited for this. I love the cover of it. It's very creepy. I love the concept of it. 14 people play a major hide and seek game in an abandoned amusement park. Winner gets the money. And it takes 7 days to do so. But if you've seen the Literally Dead Book Club review of this or live show, I highly suggest you check it out. I fall somewhere between Bear and, oh, I'm sorry, I forget the other person's name. Whoever gave it three stars. I gave this 2.5. Just for the concept, I did enjoy it for like kind of. There were aspects I enjoyed. I swear it was. How did I describe it in my comment to that live show? That I would get to a spot where I was excited because I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go, and I had hopes for where it was going to go, and then it went where it went, and I was really disappointed. So like there were multiple aspects of here that I was just like, ooh, yes, this is creepy, because it had this, at times it had this quiet place momentum of just like this thing creeping around, and like this anticipation of what is it, and like how is it killing people, and then it just kind of went like, yeah, there was like absolutely no point in some of these things. There were so many characters that I really didn't care for this perspective of because they died anyway. I really liked Allie's point I really enjoyed Allie's perspective in terms of making it a game from the game of just like, okay, like writing down everybody, all the characters, and figuring out like which, like having a game out of it of just like, all right, who's gonna die first? So in that respect, it was fairly interesting. I did read this also while camping for a little bit, and ultimately ended up like pausing because there was this quiet place aspect in like this overgrown amusement park. I took this camping because thinking it was in an abandoned amusement park, I figured that I wouldn't get scared out camping in the woods, only to find out that it had this paranormal aspect to it, and I was like, oh no, this is not okay. I don't need nightmares out in the woods. And then I get home and it's not that scary, so I was really kind of disappointed. So 2.5 stars. Okay, I need to wrap this up because I have dinner on the stove. I read Feed by Mary Grant, aka Shauna McGuire. This book, okay, so I always had a feeling I liked zombie books, so I read a couple now. Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin, The Girl with All the Gifts. So I read those, I think the 2 zombie books. But Feed by Mira Grant made me realize just why and how much I can like them. In fact, I may love them. So Feed it's advertised as young adult. I would almost say new adult because the 2 characters that we're getting perspectives from are in their early mid-20s. But basically we are following them so they were born just before the rise essentially of zombies, and so that's all they know is that the zombies have been a thing, and they're actually bloggers, where blogging is the news essentially, because the actual news can be bought out, and there's too many there was too many lies. And so we see these 2 siblings, Georgia Mason and Sean Mason, as they are basically figuring out aspects of their, like they know their aspects of their job. They're really good at it. Georgia is trying to get the facts and trying to get the facts to the people. She's a newsie. Sean is what they call an Irwin, and it wants to get out there and poke zombies with sticks. And then there is Buffy, who is all about fiction, and is a real techie, so is really really key part of their blog in order to keep it running and to keep it moderated and to keep them up to date on all the tech stuff so that they can in fact get the best news as possible. And their goal, they know they reached the top when they get offered a position to follow the presidential campaign. So they end up following a senator who's running for president and basically is informing the news of him. I absolutely enjoyed this. because we get so one thing I really enjoy about zombie books is like the questions that arise. How are people surviving? How did it start? I like the world building that comes with zombie books, and this one was great. So I've read Mira Grant before. I've read Into the Drowning Deep, which I didn't mind. I actually did enjoy it. I thought it was a little anticlimactic, but Feed I enjoyed a lot. I usually like I'm a little wary going into any series, and I believe so this is Newsflash, the Newsflash series, and I ate this book up and want more immediately. So whatever that tells you, I am usually very hesitant when it comes to series. This one, I want more. The twists had me gasping and crying. I was all about Georgia and Sean Mason. Oh my goodness. I enjoyed a lot of it. So the zombie aspect, the virus aspect, like what was going on, the political intrigue, I loved it. I think when did this come out? This came out in 2010, and it is still relevant. I love it. A lot of it is still relevant. There were some aspects of it I'm like, pandemic, yep, yep, we saw that. So there were other aspects that just had me questioning, because they're like how this virus affected other aspects of life, right, of life living. I just absolutely loved it. And it's like it also had me questioning, though, going, okay, so if it affects all animals or mammals, they said animals above 45 pounds, like it had, and like they in fact had like ranching and horses and everything, like there was a law to that effect. But it also had me questioning of just like, how then does it work with fish or like sea mammals, whales? How does that work? So just those kind of things. So just like it had me questioning and had me thinking. It was just like, how, like I want more of this, like please explain more to me. So yeah, I want more. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is gonna be, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be like my favorite book of the year, if that tells you anything. Have I had zombie nightmares since reading this book? Yes, I have. I have had like 4 or 5. Well, I stopped though. No, I actually ordered Deadline from, which is the second book in Newsflash, and plan on reading it for August. Was it in my TBR? No, it wasn't. But I recently looked through G's quest folder in the Aurelian Fall Equinox Drive, and there is a quest to read a book with that has undead featured in it. So that's perfect. If anything, the nightmares are just so that I can dive deeper into zombies, really. So yeah, I really just want to finish. I want to know what happens. So yeah. My final book for the month of July I read was Dog Flowers by Danielle Geller. This is a memoir by the name author. I don't know if she claims the name, actually. Her mother was Navajo, born on the reservation in the old Indian hospital in Fort Defiance. My mother spent the last 6 months of her life homeless, sleeping in a park in Lake Worth, Florida. When I asked her about the reservation, she always told me to never go back. So I ended up listening to this through my library, though I wish I would have did so while looking through it, in all honesty, because there are photos in here. One of the reasons why Danielle Geller ends up writing this is because her mother dies from alcohol withdrawal when she tried in an attempt to sober up, and after her mother passes, she ends up getting basically her mother's stuff, which is her mother's life, which is packed up into 8 suitcases, and within those 8 suitcases she finds photos and letters. And Danielle Geller is actually an archivist and ends up archiving these items that she finds in her mother's suitcase, as well as like just kind of going through her own memoir of sorts. And really it's kind of a look at cyclical the cycle that families can go through. So there is content. This is also heavy content warnings for alcohol abuse, drug use, PTSD. So it was very heartfelt, and I would like to reread it physically, so because I got the descriptions of what was in here in terms of photos and pictures and everything, but it would have been nice to read it with it in there, like read it and like see it as I read the story. Yeah, just would have been nice. So yeah, but yeah, that was, I don't think I rated this yet, mostly because, like I said, with Tell Me Everything, it's a little weird to rate someone's story. Like, I overall did enjoy it. I don't know. I probably won't end up rating this, and probably will take off my rating for Tell Me Everything. That's just in terms of enjoyment. That's how I felt about it. It was a 4 for Tell Me Everything. For Dog Flowers, it was about the same. But I won't on Goodreads or anything, I won't necessarily rate it. So yeah. Those are the books that I read for the month of July. If you've read any of them, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Let me hear them. If you made it this far, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you have yet to do so already, as well as, let's put an emoji. What should we put? Let's put a bird. Just some kind of, it seems to be a commonality throughout this one. Let's put some kind of bird. Any kind of bird, really. I don't know offhand what bird emojis there are, but let's put a bird. Oh, that's what I forgot to tell you. Okay, so yeah, the trainer card was originally the 3rd volume of Low, and I switched that out for Dog Flowers. And then Bagan, the dragon, which is to read a fantasy, I switched that out. So it was supposed to be Storm Road Locust. I didn't get to it, and I switched that out for Feed. So just in case you were wondering. But yeah, I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading, and I will see you in another video very soon. Chew.